Hi, everybody. Keven Winder here with Half Picture. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining. Today, we're going to talk about healing. And as you know, our world needs a lot of it emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, bodily. A lot of people in chronic pain. There's a lot of suffering, right? We look around, we think, where is all the healing? And we know politically, every possible aspect of our world needs some kind of healing. And so we're going to talk about that, but we're going to do it in the short form content, which means I'm going to speak less, trying to say more. And what I need from you is to participate by being present, by finding inner silence, and letting these words kind of wash over you. Like I said, I'm going to stretch the definition of what healing means. And by doing that, I'm probably going to bump up against some of the limitations of your own framework, of your own understanding. But I ask you to not just reject, not just stop, but just go with. Let this marinate, let it bubble to the surface, and start taking a look at all the things that start to emerge in your own personal discovery. And perhaps healing will show up in your life, for your body, for your mind, for your soul, for your relationships, and let's hope for our world. So without any further ado, let's jump into podcast number 344 in the Beyond Everything radio series. And it's number 3 in the Half Picture series, and I call it Heal. So we don't really think about this connection between the self and our body until there's a problem. Now, we've just lived through many years now of COVID, and COVID is a virus, and as a virus takes root in our bodies, we don't even know about it until it gets to a certain critical mass, and then our body disconnects from ourself, causing pain, discomfort, sickness, right? We recognize it as feeling bad, feeling sick. So healing then is this reconnection of things that are disconnected. Now, you could have an injury. You could have something like that, which disrupts the connection between your body and yourself. Hey, I want to move my knee, but I hurt my knee and I can't move it the way I used to. I can't put my weight on my feet. I can't use my hands the way I want to. There's a disconnect between the self, the soul, and the body. If you have chronic pain, or if you have a paralyzation, these are examples of areas where the self and the spirit are not completely able to reach one another. Okay? So then on this line of progression, which I'm laying out for you, death is not just stopping. Death is when the self and the soul and the body are becoming mutually exclusive from each other. Okay, so if we follow this line of connection, if we're really trying to reframe what healing is, we know that our bodies need healing, but what that really means is they need restoration, they need integration. Okay, so the most common disease in our world might surprise you. It's not heart disease, it's not cancer. The most common disease in our world is a healthy body that has a disintegrated self. I call that disease the false self, the pseudonym, the fake ID, if you listen to my podcast. Now, in the Bible, there's this word, soizo, and what it means is salvation. It means healing. It means rescue. And what this is saying, the way this is retooling our definition of healing, is it's saying that healing is rescuing the connection between our self, our soul, right? Our spirit, however you want to frame it. I use those words all interchangeably. So it's reconnecting, it's rescuing the connection between ourself and our body. Now, this is different than the mind-body connection, which needs its own healing. But if you've ever tried to meditate, if you've ever tried contemplative practice, then you know that the moment you try and sit still in the quiet, in solitude, your mind rises up, starts getting busy, gets monkey mind, you get distracted, your thoughts start carrying you off. But the very fact that most mature people who've gone after these spiritual practices have discovered that the thinker of their thought is not the same as the observer of the thought. And so I'm not talking about the mind-body connection, although that's important. That's not what I'm talking. I'm talking about more ontological center of being, your true self, your soul, and your body. When you connect these two together in their right tension, healing begins to emerge. Okay? Now, like I said, there's a lot of things in our life that have confusion, that have pain, that have hurt, that need healing. Confusion, like I mentioned, is one, right? Anger, addiction. You could have a sense of isolation, fear, anxiety, depression, insecurity, right? Look around our world. All these types of things are on display in every one of us at almost all times. Like our world desperately needs some kind of reconnection, and these are all aspects, these are all examples of a self which has lost itself, right? These are all examples of a self that has wandered off from itself and forgotten the body. So it's kind of disjointed to one side of the equation. And we know not only do we need bodily healing, but we also need psychological, we need emotional healing, we need spiritual rejoining. It's all part of the equation. They're not separate things. Another disease of the self is this over-identified self with the body. Like this is that pseudonym, that pseudo-self that erects a phototropic idol of the body, right? And then just lives vicariously through it, maximizing the body's pleasure, maximizing the body's performance. And there's this kind of defiant soul that's beneath it all, that refuses to look honestly at death. It always tries to displace it as though, well, that's not for me. That's not for a long time. I'm living, this is the chronic aspect of the young person's mind who feels like they're so far away from death, when none of us know how far we actually are. And in this other disease is a kind of hedonism which emerges because it's a self that mistakenly concludes that its existence stops when the body stops. And so everything in life is anchored to this very short-term existence. And so we need healing that restores this relationship between our spirit and our flesh. So you can't be over-identified and you can't be under-identified either. Like, who's going to offer this kind of healing to you? Like, spirituality is not an escape from our body, some Platonic dualism. It's the right restoration of the orbit and gravity of our spirit and our flesh, of our self and our body, right? We are not our bodies, but we are not other than our bodies either, right? This is where the tension is. And, a doctor offers healing to the body as best they can through drug therapy or maybe a surgery that realigns the bones or, the structures. But they can only realign them. They don't actually do the healing. There's a force, a power, a spirit that does the healing, does the work in conjunction with the work of the doctor. But it's only bodily. And if a doctor offers no healing, of any aspect other than our body, then we haven't really been integrated. It's only focusing on one corner, and that's their expertise, and that's perhaps the area they should focus. But from a holistic perspective, if we totally yield everything to this one corner, we will miss healing, folks. And if you go the other side and you find a guru, a spiritual leader, a pastor, priest, or imam, who's going to lead you down this spiritual path, but then in the end, this spirituality that they offer doesn't really discipline your body and its appetites. It doesn't set that orbit. then you haven't come close to healing either. So flesh and spirit span two dimensions, and healing is this integration of the right orbit between flesh and spirit, the right balance, the right tension, right? And this is what it means to have the image of God, to be the imago Dei, to be like Christ. Christ is this figure that is not only a God, but also man. Like this, that's the idea, is that God and man coexist in this person. And then we're told that we have this image of God and that we are the spirit imbued in a body. And that these two dynamic realities of spirit and flesh are coexisting in us, and we share in that Christ likeness. And therefore healing begins and ends. It begins and ends as the restoration of our Christ consciousness. And so this is not an invitation into the Christian religion. Please make this differentiation. There's a conscious awareness of this dynamic aspect of spirit and body together within you. That is Christ consciousness. Now, this word healing, if we go back to this, soizo, salvation, rescue, healing, it's less about an event. And so much of our world, that's what we think about, especially in spiritual terms. Oh, I went to a healing event, and I had this event where I went in crippled and came out healed. Healing is much more of a lifestyle of integrating both spiritual and physical dimensions. Healing does not erase our scars. It transforms our scars. And so now we're going to add another layer of this spiritual consideration. This is this idea of resurrection. Right? Resurrection is this promise to permanently integrate our scars, not erase them, and put them together into something that has everlasting beauty. This is a way that we wipe the tear away. Like, it's not denying the tear. It's not saying it never happened. It's the removal of the tear, which means it's no longer sad. So you keep the scar, the history, the pain, because it's purposeful. There's no such thing as meaningless suffering. It's all designed to bring about and reveal beauty. And then at the end of it all, it turns out that it makes all sad things untrue. That is what healing ultimately does. And so if we're focused on healing only for our emotional pain, or only for our physical debilitations or limitations, we are so far under appraising our understanding of healing that it's almost comical. But we can't blame ourselves. These are the things that cause us pain, and this is our area of focus. But if we take our definition out all the way, then healing is being able to see for the first time ourself beyond death. Right? Death isn't stopping. Death is not the end. Death is actually healing our inability to see our body and our life as it actually is, which is the very life and body of Christ. Like, we don't have a being apart from the being of God. And so once healing connects that big of a span of reality, true healing starts to flow. Healing begins once we stop chasing this wind of pretense and fiction. Healing is this connection of our being to the very being of God. Healing is seeing the love of God in and as our very life. Not only as it is, and that means all of its potential as well as all of its imperfections, and just owning it, being with it, not trying to push against it. Just be here with it now. Healing is here. I think so many people miss healing because they're stuck on the event that brought them the pain. They can't get back. Of course you can't. You'll never go back. And healing is never back there anyway. And you can't just only look forward to the one day when you're over it. That's not where healing is either. It's not in the future. Healing is only here. It's only now. And healing begins for those who have an open hand and not a closed fist. And I don't know what that will look like for you, but if you're accessing this definition, if it's stretching your framework of reality just a little bit, go with it, explore it, ask the next question. Because the Christ asked this question of you. In John 5:6, he said, "Do you want to be healed?"